The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has come under heavy criticism after he failed to answer questions posed to him during his visit to Chatham House, but delegated them to members of his party who were there with him. According to the former Lagos State governor, he adopted the delegation method to show teamship, adding that he is a marketing brand.
In a video which has now gone viral, the APC candidate was seen delegating questions to Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, Dele Aleke, Wale Edun, and Femi Gbajabiamila, Kayode Fayemi, and Dr. Betta Edu. Now, there have been several reactions, but let's first of all take a look at this video.
Unbreakable team. To demonstrate that, I will choose the first question, assign it to Dele Alake.
Okay.
And the second question, assign to Nasiru El-Rufai. And third question, assign to Ben Ayade.
Well, Dele Alake rather, and all the other assignees did have a lot on their hands. Now, on education, Tinubu promised to provide student loans and reform the Almajiri educational system practiced in northern Nigeria. El-Rufai, who answered questions on security, stated that banditry, terrorism, separatism, and oil theft require a new approach, including increasing the number of security operatives. Let's now bring in Public Affairs Analyst Ademola Akingbola, who will now join us to analyze the story. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me around. Thank you.
I think our first question would be to get your thoughts. You saw the video, I believe. You've seen the reactions on social media, but what are your thoughts concerning the address and the delegation of responsibilities that happened yesterday at Chatham House?
Okay, thank you. I think there are two issues here. The main address itself, and of course the question and answer session, which has generated a lot of controversy. I personally see nothing wrong in delegating people to answer questions. Don't let us forget that we're talking about capacity for leadership here. Anybody who has followed this man will know that that has been his style. And personally, I have worked with 2 or 3 CEOs who will do the same thing, go to a public event, question and answer session, they answer the ones they want to answer, and delegate. I can understand the groundswell of public opinion against what Tinubu did. And to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting anything less, okay? A lot of people were actually expecting him to take on all the questions personally, but hey, we have lost focus on the main theme of that event. Nobody's talking about the address. Nobody's talking about the key issues that he raised. Nobody's looking at the meat of the address. We've all focused on the fact that he delegated. Fine. Is there any rule against that? Probably no. A couple of people have said, oh, he is a candidate, not the fight, not like it. Yes, of course he is. But if a candidate feels that he has a competent team, he has a capable team that can answer those questions, I don't think that there's anything wrong. It will be a different issue if we are doubting Tinubu's mental capacity or his ability to respond to those questions. I mean, that would be a different thing entirely.
Yeah, but Mr. Akingbola, good thing you mentioned that. Do you think over time that the APC's candidate has shown his capacity that you just mentioned to respond to those questions?
Yes, because I don't think that any of those issues that he hasn't talked about. If you watch the video at Arewa Forum, if you watch the video of his meeting with organized private sector in Lagos, if you watch his various speeches, there isn't any of those issues he hasn't talked about. And these are elementary questions that even you can answer confidently. So I don't think he was trying to dodge those questions. He was just trying to demonstrate. That's the same thing he did when he asked Chatham to represent him in Lagos. I think it's just his style, okay? But because he's been the topic, he's been the issue, what he does, what he doesn't do has become the subject of discussion ahead of the elections. That is why we have this discussion. I don't see anything wrong in it. Of course, people are entitled to their opinion, I have nothing against those who think that he should have answered those questions directly himself. But at the same time, we respond to situations based on our experiences. And I've just told you about my personal experiences. I've worked 2 or 3 CEOs. We went to stock exchange to address stockbroker, to address the nation's capital market. Question and answer time, he answered 2 or 3. He had his EDs and his GMs. He asked them to also answer those questions. I think we should look at the other side of this. A leader who is ready to divest himself of authority, who is ready to divest himself of responsibility without necessarily not being held accountable. The fact that he asked those guys to answer those questions does not in any way mean that he's not going to be accountable.
All right.
So
yes.
Mr. Akingbola, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I have to keep going back to this. Yes. And this is why I asked, has the APC's candidate been able to address Nigerians? And I'm not talking about, if you're speaking about the Arewa meeting and then a few others, I don't know that Nigerians have heard him speak on a plethora of these issues. And if you're also aware that multiple times the APC's candidate has been invited to speak to Nigerians in general at town hall meetings, at TV debates, and didn't show up. And these could have been places where he would have been asked these questions directly, but he didn't show up.
Yes.
And so do you then understand the concerns that Nigerians have? Because some of these persons that he has pointed at to answer these questions, nobody is voting them in, and nobody is assuming that they will be a part of the government when he gets into power. And so he needs to answer those questions himself. And how do you delegate a question on your health care or the status of your health to somebody else to answer?
Well, I very much believe that there will be an opportunity for him to address Nigerians directly. Okay, I think there's still a debate coming up. I don't want to start mentioning names of some particular event, that he's been invited to and that he did not go. Don't let us just mention names. But again, like I said, I know that before the elections, he would have the opportunity to talk to Nigerians. And everything that has been done, I don't think he has breached any section of the Electoral Act. Okay? There's nothing absolutely that says that he must do this, must do that. But just from the moral and ethical perspective, that okay, a candidate who wants to lead us must be willing to talk to us, must be willing to address us. So I very much believe that at the right time, he would address Nigerians directly. I do not, for any reason, doubt his capacity to address any of those questions. It's just, like I said, his style of leadership, his style of carrying people along and delegating responsibility.
All right,
so
Mr. Akingbola,
I know that, yes, please.
Yeah, you are going to look at the meat of the speech. But first of all, let's talk about your reactions. You've shared your reaction and how you personally feel about the fact that he delegated the answer of these or the answering of these questions to members of his team. But let's find out what a former senator of the 8th Nigerian National Assembly had to say about this.
Yeah.
Tinubu, you go Chatham House today. But all these questions that you are sharing, Tinubu, there is God. Oh, the questions you are supposed to be answering, you are sharing. Why are you sharing these questions? You are assigning questions. Or to the question distributor. You want the question organizer. One instead of you to answer the questions. Allocate the question. You want the question allocator. This number 1 is assigned to Guinea. Number 2 is assigned to everybody. Number 3 is assigned to Ben Ayade. Number Guinea is assigned to. He left them in Nigeria to go to Chatham House as if he's contesting for the Prime Minister of London. Babakaka!
This is not the first time that we've seen former Senator Dino Melaye respond to issues such as this one, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are as regards Dino Melaye's response.
I was really surprised that Dino Melaye is your reference point in terms of a former senator. We all know him as a clown. He's a jester. I've never taken any of his videos seriously. And come to think of it, Can Tinubu Melaya confidently say that he has more capacity than Tinubu, despite the age differences? Yes, of course, he's entitled to his own clownish reaction, which has been his way. But again, I see nothing wrong in what Asiwaju has done. I believe that the reactions have been blown out of proportion. And let me ask you, why is it that Tinubu is the main topic? Why is the main issue ahead of those elections? Why is nobody talking about Obi? We're talking about Atiku. Why is it Tinubu all the time? What he does, what he doesn't do, why is it attracting so much attention? Okay?
Well,
so I believe the reactions in some cases have been misplaced, in some cases have been totally blown out of proportion. Okay? And like I said, I very much believe that he has opportunities ahead of him to still address Nigerians. I am not holding brief on him, but as a communication specialist, as someone who has been in leadership management over the years, I probably would have done the same thing. Quite frankly, I would have done the same thing, and that would not have amounted to me judging those questions. But because there has been a background to Tinubu, didn't go to our ISTP debate, didn't go to this, so people naturally felt that there is something is hiding. But I really do not think so. I think we have been in some cases we are trying to major on the minors. The main address that the man presented, has anybody faulted that address? Key themes, the issues raised, has anybody faulted them? Those are the things that I would have loved us to discuss in details, not that whether he delegated questions or not.
all right,
The more serious
Akingbola.
issues of what he would do to tackle security, to revive the economy, foreign policy, all of those things are what the media should be talking about.
Yeah, Mr. Akingbola.
I mean, allow the social media to direct.
Mr. Akingbola, I honestly don't think that these things are trivial. I don't think that, these things are unimportant, like you've described.
I've never said that they're not important.
Yeah, but you said we're made.
I said that they have been blown out of proportion.
Exactly. So what you said that we're majoring on the minor. I don't think these are minor issues.
No.
And I'm sure that you would admit and you would accept that Nigeria is at a very critical time in its history.
Yeah.
The next general elections, which come in February, are going to be a huge step that Nigerians will have to take in deciding the future of this country. And that means being able to salvage the ship that we currently have as a country. Are we going to have it worse, or are we going to have it better? And so it's not unimportant or minor to understand that the person who is trying to be president, the person who wants to lead Nigeria for 4 years, will be able to confidently address every single issue that Nigerians throw at him, and respect Nigerians enough to show up when he's invited to speak with Nigerians. It is the respect that Nigerians need, and I don't think it's a minor to understand that.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Did Obasanjo attend any of those debates prior to the national elections? Did he eventually perform well or not?
The 1999
Nigeria. Those debates.
But I would
the 1999 elections, I would argue, are different from the 2023 elections. That's one. And then second, it is arguable whether former President Obasanjo did well or not. There are people who would still tell you that he didn't do so well.
Exactly.
But we're no longer in 1999, Mr. Akingbola. We're in 2023.
Yeah.
all right.
Nigeria's economy is in arguably one of its worst states. And let me remind you, Mr. Akingbola, in 2014, in the build-up to the elections in 2014, one of the things that Nigerians did not do well enough was scrutinize the person of President Muhammadu Buhari, the current president, before he got into office. People would argue that he was simply snuck into office and there was no proper questioning of his capacity and his capability to be president. You remember, Mr. Akingbola, that it took 6 months before he made any appointments. Yeah. You remember what happened with Nigeria's security. You remember what has happened with corruption in Nigeria. You remember what currently Nigeria is dealing with the level of poverty. And Nigerians would argue that it is because there were no proper questions to know that this person is capable of handling these issues. Don't you see that there's a repeat with the APC's candidate in 2022 in the lead up to the next general elections? So you would understand the fears that Nigerians have.
I totally understand and I appreciate those concerns. I mean, they are legitimate concerns, there's no doubt. I mean, I will not come here and put those concerns aside. I'm just saying, look, there are two events. There was an address, that was a Q&A session. Okay, nobody is talking about the address. Fine. People wanted him to speak to them extemporarily. Fine. And I'm saying, look, I'm also a recruiter, and I've been on several interview panels, and some candidates come across as being very suave, very smooth, they can talk, but they end up not delivering. And I'm saying, look, which do we want? A candidate that can smooth talk, that can answer the questions confidently, that has the gift of oration and gets there and doesn't perform, or someone that has a pedigree that we know can deliver. Okay? I mean, I think we need to strike a balance between the two.
All right. So I think now,
yeah. All right,
Mr. Akingbola, now let's give you an opportunity to talk about the main address. We are currently having a country that has a currency that's weakened by 53%. There's so many challenges that the country is currently facing in the area of security and the economy. Now, to move Nigeria from the country that it is to the country that it ought to be, some things need to be done differently. Looking at the speech that the APC presidential candidate has given and the answers to the questions that he's given directly and also by indirectly by the people he appointed, what are some of the highlights or the high points for you and some of the things that you think can be done differently from his speech to show that, you know, if he does become the president of the country will definitely move from where it is to where it ought to be?
Okay, he's talked about reforming the regulatory and legal frameworks of the oil industry, okay, to reduce government involvement and to allow private sector to come in and invest more. That to me is key. Okay, a situation whereby government is the one fixing the prices, determining everything cannot work. And the same thing with the monetary policy. It's promised to align fiscal and monetary policies so that what we have today in terms of a fragmented foreign exchange management system will no longer be tenable. If you look at what has happened in the past 6 years, government has been the one directing and controlling the direction, okay, of the monetary policy, and that's why the exchange rate would never appreciate. We need to look at the long-term view in terms of productivity for export. There's no magic wand that will make the naira to appreciate. We need to come up with a plan. And that was Tinubu has been saying, that we need to look at how do we produce in such a way that we have the capacity to export and foreign exchange. How do we reduce our monumental taste for foreign goods, for foreign consumption? And he's talking about also moving the GDP to about 7% annual growth rate. These are things that can be debated. These are issues that can be interrogated. But I've always said, and I was at a forum yesterday, the president of a country probably has maybe 10% or 50% role to play. He has a team. I tell you, if Buhari had chosen a better team than we have today, we wouldn't have been in this mess. It took him 6 months to form his cabinet, and by the time he did, it was a mess. Okay? So a leader is as good as people that are working with him.
On a final note, Mr. Akingbola, on a final note, and if you can answer this in as few seconds as possible, I appreciate it. You've just talked about President Muhammadu Buhari and how, you know, he appointed his cabinet 6 months later and it was a mess. Do you think that we're going to see anything differently from the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration? You know, is it going to be different from the Tinubu-led administration, seeing as they are the same party? And he oftentimes, even in his speech yesterday, said, you know, he wants to continue the work that has been done by the current administration.
There's going to be a fundamental departure. Why? Because when you look at Tinubu's pedigree as governor of Lagos State, he had one of the best cabinets in the country then. And when you look at it, the way he's going, he is a man that I believe has an idea of the team he wants to work with. He's so clear about who he's going to work with. So I very much believe that we're going to have a fundamental departure from what happened under Buhari.
All right.
Tinubu will not take 6 months to choose a cabinet, and I believe that he won't pander to ethnic and tribal sentiment in choosing his team. I'm very sure of that.
All right, Mr. Akingbola, thank you so much. By the way, Mr. Ademola Akingbola is the publisher of the Podium Media. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Like you've said, yes, you know, like you said, the APC's candidate has a clear idea. Nigerians just want him to say it by himself.